So just to give you a recap, we are in Unit 3. We are learning about American civilizations, and we are doing Chapter 6 about Mesoamerica, which is in the middle of South and North America. And in Section 1, we covered about the Olmec and the Zapotec. And this time in Section 2, we will learn about the Maya. And this section consists of 5 lessons about the Maya civilization. Mr. Ramos, which one is right? Maya or Mayan? They are both acceptable. Alright, you might be familiar with the drill, but I will repeat it anyway. Have your textbooks ready or go to Lodi Unified School District website, and from there log in to Clever, and from Clever launch Cengage Learning, which is the resource for the National Geographic Learning book online, and log in with your student account and password, and go ahead. From the left side, it's Unit 3, and Unit 3 Chapter 6, and from Chapter 6 Section 2, and this will be the first lesson, which is in page 156, pages 156 to 157. We need to be guided by the essential question for this chapter so that we can focus with what we need to learn. So the essential question for Chapter 6 is, how did Mesoamerican civilizations adopt and adapt the culture of earlier civilizations? And the objective of this lesson is to describe the class system in Maya society and the importance of religion in daily life. But before we dive into the lesson, let's take a look at this video resource from the National Geographic channel.
The Maya. They're considered one of the most advanced civilizations to have existed in the Americas before the Spanish conquest. But who exactly were the ancient Maya people, and what led to the collapse of their civilization? As early as 1800 BC, the Maya had begun settling and established villages in what is today Mexico and Central America. Maya civilization peaked from 250 to 900 AD. During what archaeologists call the Classic period. More than 40 cities flourished throughout the region, with populations as large as 50,000. The Maya built magnificent urban centers consisting of stone structures, including pyramid temples that were central to Maya religious practices. In addition to these impressive city structures, agriculture played a key role in Maya civilization. Corn was one of the predominant crops. The Maya creation story tells of nature gods, the basis of Maya religion, who created humans out of yellow and white corn. The Maya also made significant advancements in mathematics and astronomy. They invented the concept of zero, and they developed an accurate calendar system. Used to guide the Maya agricultural cycles, the calendar was based on observations of the sun and sky over thousands of years. The Maya also developed the only known system of writing in Mesoamerica, hieroglyphs. In fact, much of what we know about ancient Maya civilization comes from deciphering hieroglyphic characters inscribed in pottery, stone slabs, and other ruins discovered at ancient sites. Hieroglyphs have revealed that, despite the Maya's ingenuity and agrarian lifestyle, conflict was prevalent among some Maya city-states as they battled for control of the region. Throughout much of the Classic period, the city-state of Tikal, located in modern-day Guatemala, reigned as the closest thing to an empire in Maya history. But for a period of roughly 130 years, the Tikal people were overtaken through force and diplomacy by the Kanul, a rival kingdom. Toward the end of the Classic period, around 900 AD, most Maya cities had collapsed. Among the theories are warfare, a volcanic eruption, and, perhaps most likely, drought. However, archaeologists still debate why, as new evidence continues to emerge. Despite the decline of ancient Maya civilization, the Maya people have by no means disappeared. More than 7 million Maya are estimated to be alive today in their indigenous homelands and around the world. While they participate in modern global life, they continue to follow agricultural and ceremonial practices of their ancestors.
Okay, so the Maya developed a social structure and worshipped many different gods. Lesson 2.1 describes the development of Maya civilization, which was similar to that of the Olmecs and the Zapotec. Now, what is social structure? If you can still remember or recall from our discussion or lesson about the feudal system, it is a lot like a pyramid where a lot of people are at the bottom and very few important individuals are at the top of this imaginary social pyramid. So that is a social structure. The Maya social structure is a lot like the feudal system, European feudal system. So of course, well, to be honest, it is a lot like every civilization. The upper class includes, of course, the king, the topmost, and his family. The upper class include the priests, warriors, traders. Priests are highly educated and they are in charge of religious festivals and prophecies and important things, communication to their gods. Warriors obviously are very important because they are the ones who make the kingdom very powerful and in control. We also have traders, and of course, it depends on how wealthy the traders are. And they are in the upper class, middle class, and a lot of them, if they're like just ordinary traders, they are at the bottom with the servants and workers and slaves and captives. It's important to note that in a Maya society social structure, parents determine life choices of their children. And when we say determine, it's really not like what modern parents do. It is not guidance, it's not advice, it's more of a control. It is more of forcing their children to live the life that they think is best for them, and maybe what they think is best for their family or their reputation in the Maya community or Maya society. Well, I talked about the class system already. So in the Maya class system, the Maya emerged around the same times as the Zapotec. Their culture began to develop to the east of the Zapotec in areas of present-day southern Mexico and Central America in 1500 BC. Like their predecessors, the Olmecs, they are farmers too. They develop successful agricultural practices and they produce surplus crops including beans, chili peppers, cacao beans, which is transformed to chocolate, and of course maize, which is many or the Maya civilization or society considered to be sacred or holy or very important. So the Maya developed cities that produced class system with four main classes like what I discussed a while ago. The very top, the king and priest, and most of the time their kings are their priests as well, who performed religious ceremonies and was believed to have descended from the gods that they worship. So of course, what else? Who else can lead them but the descendants of the gods that they worship? Well, of course, they have priests as well, and in this rank sometimes emerge a king, priests and warriors. So they conducted important religious rituals and ceremonies. Warriors were well respected and well trained. So the Maya developed a rigid, structured social system, which means that if you are born in a certain class and you are at the bottom, most likely it is impossible for you to change your status or condition in life. Well, good for you if you are born at the top or at least at the middle. So this is the simplified version of this class structure. Now let's talk about the daily life of the Maya society. Just like every civilization, class determined where people lived and how they dressed. Of course, people dress the way they dress because they can afford it, and live where they live because they can afford it. They have servants, they have resources to build bigger houses, and other people are simply incapable of purchasing resources to build bigger houses and fancy clothes. Well, like every civilization, past, present, and most likely, I hope not in the future, the wealthy enjoyed comfortable lifestyle. So farmers and those who belong to the lower class, they worked harder than those who belong to the middle and obviously the upper class. So on hillsides, they carved out terraces, the farmers, on which to grow their maize, cacao beans, and chili peppers. And in dry areas, they dug channels that carried river waters to their fields. So, in addition to their own work, sometimes farmers had to tend to the king's field and build monuments and temples in his cities. So, those are just their extracurricular hard works. Maya farmers are very smart because they are observing changes, seasonal changes, because that's very important in determining what crop to plant in a particular time of the year. And because of this, they gain so much knowledge about the environment and everything around them. Farmers are very religious as well because they look to their gods to control the weather and increase their harvest. Religion was central to everyone's lives, and the Maya worshiped many gods. They are polytheistic. Poly means many, including the gods of fire, sun, water, rain, maize. And we will learn more about this later. So all these gods were thought to influence the every aspect of the people's lives in both good and bad ways. For example, the maize god was one of the most important of all the Maya gods that I mentioned. So the god often appeared as a handsome young man with a hair made of maize silk. So the god represented the cycle of life. So birth, death, rebirth, as well as the cycle of maize, planting, harvesting, and replanting. Like in the movie Lion King, it's the circle of life. Okay, so to please their gods, of course, they have to make some sacrifices, some offerings. So sometimes they offer food, animals, plants, and other precious objects. Now, this is the interesting part. Since the Maya believed that the gods that they worship had given their blood to create people, so in return, the Maya sometimes offered their own blood or made human sacrifices to honor their gods. Just as maize nourished people, Maya believed that blood nourished the gods. Rather than sacrifice one of their own, however, the Maya often sacrificed the member of the lower class, the lowest class in the society, and often these are captured slaves. Okay, so that's how the Maya society in general works. Now let's go to the review and assess questions. Now let's go to the review and assess questions. For number 1, reading check. What were the 4 main classes of early Maya society? And number 2, interpret maps. On what geographic landform were many of the major Maya cities located? And number 3, compare and contrast. How did the daily life of farmers differ from the people belonging to the wealthier classes? And most likely these are the middle and upper class. Okay, now go back to our Google Classroom and open Chapter 6, Section 2, Review and Assess Assignment, the Maya, and answer the questions. Don't forget to fill up your last name, first name, class period, and all those basic information, and the key vocab. And don't forget to put the title of the lesson, Maya Society. And if you're aiming, and I hope you will, for the full credit, correct answers using your own words in complete sentences. So those are the 3 things that you need to do in order to get the full credit for this assignment. And that is Section 2.1, our first lesson, the Maya society.